Hello everyone, welcome to our fifth installment of the Business Web Practices Speaker Series here at Clark College. This week we have two speakers, and the first speaker is going to be Clark College's very own marketing director Tocarra Stark.
Thank you. So I have been invited to just talk to you about how I actually came to Clark and kind of my history working at agencies. So I'm just going to walk through that. Feel free to ask me questions along the way, and we'll just go from there. And of course, I'm here for questions afterwards, or even if you think of something afterwards, let Bruce know and he can put you in touch with me. I'm housed over in Bauer Hall, so you can also just come up and see me anytime. So let's get started. So a little bit about me. You might hear an accent. I am from Minnesota. I apologize. I avoid the words about, out, boat, all of them, but they are kind of fun. So, but I moved out here last summer to become the director of marketing. Before that, I was working in agencies and nonprofits. I did my education at a small liberal arts, so I have a degree in communications and media studies. I'm also a little bit of a history nerd. And then I also have a master's and I have a doctorate, so I'm technically Dr. Stark, but I only make certain people call me that, like Bruce.
I don't think you did.
Yeah, that's all right, I'll get him back. So my first 5 years I actually spent at a big, what's actually technically an international agency called Weber Shandwick. I got there after a couple of internships that I did for free. I volunteered, so I worked in my college office, in their PR office, and then I worked for Big Brothers Big Sisters before I got an entry-level internship at Weber Shandwick, which is an agency I had really, really wanted to work at. I'd had a speaker come into my class and decided it was the place to be, and I spent 5 years there. The great thing about a big agency like that is you get really big clients who you can do lots of great things with. So I worked on a variety of counts, but my three main ones were the American College of Surgeons. So anything and everything surgeons all day, every day. I've seen way too many medical studies, and I'm pretty much afraid of surgery at this point. I worked on a campaign called Go Direct with the U.S. Treasury and the National Federal Reserve Bank. So I want to talk about high regulations and everything having to be exactly precise to the penny. And then I also worked on the U.S. Army, and I specifically worked on doing grassroots campaigns. So going into communities like Washington, D.C., and building advisory boards to talk about Army medicine. So what's it like to be a doctor, nurse, dentist in the military? So working across kind of all of those. And as a junior person at an agency, you do a lot of just tactical, boring work. There's a lot of spreadsheets, there's a lot of phone calls, there's a lot of spending hours researching on the website for different things, preparing things for somebody else to go and present. But you get a lot of great exposure. You know, I was working on big teams across the country, you know, offices in Chicago, Texas, London, Asia. So you get exposure to a lot of different people, a lot of really talented people. I did travel a little bit when I was at this agency. So you kind of weigh the odds, you know, what's really working for you and what you really want to learn. At about 5 years, I decided I needed a little bit of a change, and I really wanted to do more client work. So I'd done a lot of different cool projects, but I didn't get a lot to do a lot directly with our clients. And I had the opportunity to move to a smaller agency in Minneapolis called Haberman. It's a family-owned business. There was about 40 people. So my first agency was about 120 in my office and probably about 6,000 around the world. So this was a much different environment for me. But I was doing everything from pitching our clients. So when they asked, you know, we're looking for a new partner, I would work with the team on putting together the proposal and going in and saying, here's why you want to hire us, here's why we're amazing, to then actually doing all the work that they get hired for. And from here, I was working on a lot of integrated campaigns. So putting together marketing pieces, developing brands, developing campaigns, developing websites, doing social media. One of my clients, who's one of my favorite, was Union Depot. So it's a train station in downtown St. Paul that was completely renovated and reopened. But they were part of the community, so they were looking to do a lot of different things to reintroduce themselves to the community, but then also get people to come in and use the space. So we got to do fun things like fashion shows. They have beehives on the roof that they produce their own honey, so we did the labels for the different honey and all of the packaging design. We did their website, we did all of their advertising. So it was a really fun type of campaign, but it's a little bit different environment when you're working with only 40 people and you're used to having a team of 120. But it's also nice because you get to work more closely with the designers, the web developers, and everything else on smaller teams and be much more integrated. After that, I had an opportunity to go to a nonprofit that I had known about and was really excited to work for called Be the Match. It's also known as the National Marrow Donor Program. And I worked specifically on their college programs, so doing campaigns on their college campuses to get young people to join the registry, so signing up to do a marrow donation for cancer patients. So it's a life-saving treatment, but it's really hard to find matches. And then from there, I had the opportunity to move west, and I was ready for a change. And so I've been here for about 15 months, and as the marketing director, I pretty much do it all. We have a great team, but we operate kind of like a little internal agency here. So we're doing the communications and marketing strategy. I'm the lead brand strategist. We do campaigns. We kind of monitor all of our communications policies, so how emails go out, how letters go out, what we can post on social media or not on social media, what goes on our website. We're part of building partnerships, both on campus and off campus. I manage our internal team, and then I also do some of the execution. So I actually will write web copy, write press releases, social media posts, digital ads, poster copy, whatever needs to kind of be done for the day. And just to give you kind of a sense of our an agency structure, but our internal agency. So there's currently 8 of us. We're looking to hire 1 more team member. But above me is our Chief Marketing Officer. He's also our Chief Information Officer, Chattel Hazel Baker. You might see him around campus, or if you've taken College 101, you might have had him. So he's my boss, and he does a few different things. Otherwise, below me, I have 1 communications specialist, Hannah, who's a former editor and writer, so she's written for a variety of different magazines, newspapers, etc. We have 2 graphic designers, both are actually now senior graphic designers. So they do everything you see, the photography, posters, whatnot. They're all in charge of making everything look beautiful. And then on the other side of the house, we have a videographer who's actually professionally trained, so he does a lot of high production video pieces, does our TV ads, etc. And then we have 2 web specialists, a webmaster, and then a web programmer, and they make the website run and keep it all up to date. So in most agencies, you're going to see a mix of this same type. Videographers are a little bit more rare, just because a lot of times they have their own firms and independently contract out. But you will see developers, designers. Oftentimes, agencies have a team of project managers, so someone who's overseeing everything, as well as kind of what would be considered the account people, so your marketing directors and whatnot. So, enough about me. What's it like? So, some of the great things about agencies are that you're part of a team, and it's one of the things I loved, is that you're never working on anything alone. You can get in rooms, you can brainstorm together, you can troubleshoot. You know, when your client has yelled at you, you can go in a room and vent about it together. You get to be really creative. You know, it's great to, one of the things I loved was being able to say, all right, here's our new biggest challenge. The client is trying to sell this product, or they want to reach this group of people, and being able to get together and, you know, throw ideas up on the wall and say what's going to work, what's not going to work, and then actually being able to see it come to fruition. You know, seeing that TV ad hit is pretty exciting when you spent the last, 6 months working on it. You can grow your skills really fast. In an agency, no matter if it's, a 3-person agency or a 300-person agency, oftentimes you're going to get thrown things that you've never done before, and it's going to be all hands on. It's a fast and furious environment. There's lots of deadlines, and somebody's got to do it. So it's a great place to kind of try your hand at different things and just be exposed to people who know things that you don't know. The other thing about agencies is there's a pretty clear career path. They're very hierarchical in that you're going to come in, you're going to get a job title. You might start out as, an account executive or a junior designer or a junior web developer, You're going to move to a regular web developer, senior web developer, creative director. So there's really clear paths. So if you like a place where you know you can make steady jumps in your title and your pay, agencies are very much like that. And even going between them is pretty easy. If you join the agency world, you'll soon see that everyone just kind of moves around and tries their hand at different places. Just some sample agencies. It used to be that they were very kind of segmented. This is a PR agency, this is a marketing agency, this is an ad agency, and then of course came the birth of digital agencies. There's still some specialization, but most of the time you're going to find they have a really diverse team because marketing and advertising is not as siloed as it used to be. Everything kind of overlaps, and if you can't put all the pieces together, you're not going to be successful. So you'll have agencies like Fallon, which is a big ad agency, actually based out of Minneapolis, but they do international work. They have a huge team, a few hundred employees. BBDO and Cohen Wolf, Martin Williams, Fleischman Hillard are some of the largest and that have been around the longest. But with digital agencies, you also see a rise in those. So Huge is a really well-known and respected web development agency. They get hired across the board, big companies, Target, 3M, all of those. You have places like The Nerdery that are exclusive in web development. They have a team of about 300. And people highly specialize. You either do all user experience, you only do site architecture, I only do design, and that's because they do so many that everyone has to really be able to do their job and turn it around quickly. Then you have spot places like Razorfish, Latitude, and Blue Mountain who kind of do anything and all things digital, websites, social media, SEO, SEM, and do it in campaign formats. A lot of times, too, you'll find that agencies partner, and if you're talking about big corporations, a lot of times they have more than one agency working for them. So, for example, Haberman worked with Target at one point. Target has about 6 to 10 agencies on call at all times doing different parts of their business. So you also learn to partner really well with other agencies and figure out how you're going to get the work done and not compete. So it's less than great. It's really fast-paced, and it can be long hours. If you have to have a TV ad going up in a week and you are not there, guess what? You're staying till midnight every night till it's done. It can be really long that way. Or you have a new business pitch. If you're going after a piece of business that's worth $10 million, you better bet no one's leaving until that presentation is spot on perfect. So there's some downtimes to it. It's really competitive, both internally with others. It can be very competitive if you're all looking to get promoted or move up the chain. But it's also just a really competitive field. With agencies, you're always competing with another agency or internal resources to get business. That's your bread and butter. And despite all of that, there is potential for boredom. It is kind of you're selling the same thing every day of, yep, we're going to build a website again for this new client. And for some people, that's not enough. Or if you're very specialized and you want to be able to do more, it can get kind of tedious. Determining the worth. This is the other part that is sometimes hard for people when they work in agencies. Because agencies make their money based on what's called billable hours. So everyone is assigned out at a billable rate. So a junior person might bill out at $50 an hour, $75 an hour. Your CEO is going to bill out anywhere from $300 to $1,000 an hour. So you have to think about when you're putting your plans together, if the budget is $20,000 and you have a team of 5, how many hours can each person spend and you still make money? So sometimes, that's a really cool, interesting side of the business, but also can feel kind of hard when you're the person and you're saying, all right, I bill out at $100 an hour. What does that really mean for me? And how much am I working, and am I really contributing that much? And is this how I like to work? Do I like to feel like that's how I'm valued? There's also a lot of ethics when you're working in this field. Both in agencies and just in general. There's a lot of trust that has to be built, not only amongst your team, you're working together oftentimes on tight deadlines and other things, but you have to be really creative, so you have to feel comfortable enough to throw out your ideas and to be supportive and to be able to share. And if you're having a bad day or an off day, feel comfortable to let people know, because the machine keeps going whether you're feeling up to it or not. you're also working with a lot of intellectual property. You have to be really careful around, is that a tagline that I've seen somewhere before, or is that a phrase that's been used somewhere before? Is it trademarked? Can we use it? And being really respectful of that. Agencies run into that a lot. Actually, when I was at Haberman, we had that issue. We hired a freelancer to help us generate some campaign ideas. Those ideas were pitched. One of them was selected. Turns out another company had already had that idea pitched to them, and even though they didn't use it, it was technically their property because they had paid for that creative time. So you can get into lawsuits and other things. So you have to be really careful about how you're managing creative ideas and what's pitched and what's not used. And then integrity and quality kind of go hand in hand. When you're working in an agency, you're selling your own talents, your own creativity. So it's a constant push to give 110, 120% quality, because the next agency can also come over and run a Facebook page, but you have to be able to do it better if you want to win the business and keep the business. I often get asked, what about bad clients? And you've probably seen plenty of these in movies. They do exist. They're a small percentage. But they can be really hard, and I have been in situations where we fired clients, and very much for the fact that they were just horrible people to work for. They hollered at their own teams, they would holler at us, unfair deadlines. It just really wasn't a good working relationship. But it takes a while to get to that point, and it can be really detrimental to a team if you feel like you're constantly being yelled at by your client. Other clients are just difficult. They know what they want, and sometimes they can't really articulate it very well. And when you have to go back to the drawing board 5 or 6 times, at some point you kind of have to draw the line in the sand too and say, we're not getting what you want, or you need to stop changing your mind. And you kind of negotiate through that. That's one reason it's really nice having a team. When you're freelancing and you have a bad client, the only person you have to talk to is yourself oftentimes. At least when you have a team or you're working in an agency setting, you can bring in others. You can bring in your CEO or your director and say, we're having this problem. How do we work through this with the client? And a lot of times when you have a bad client, it's not them, it's their company. They have demands on them. They're trying to, reach their quotas or their sales goals. They're being asked to do the unthinkable, and now they're asking you to do the unthinkable. So a lot of times it's really understanding where they're coming from and trying to work through it together. And then sometimes you just have to agree to break up. A few myths and beliefs. They're all the same: PR, marketing, and advertising. They work really closely together, but they are slightly different. And some people like to do them all, and some people like a little bit more one than the other. So the old adage, and you can Google this and find this, and the best way to think about it is PR, public relations, is about third-party testimonials. It's what everyone else says about you. It's a lot of where social media lives. Marketing is a direct message. It's one company saying, this is my product. Advertising is a step further, saying, buy the product, use the product, whatever. So it's an example of just saying, if I say I'm, the best runner in the world, that's marketing. If I say I make the best whatever product to make you a great runner, that's advertising. But if Bruce says, nope, that is the best runner that you'll see in the world, that's PR. And there's different approaches to that. The highest value is PR. That's why social media has gotten so big. If you're thinking about buying a car, do you just believe what you see in the Consumer Reports or whatever the latest TV ad is? If so, I think we'd all be buying GM because they've won so many awards with that one ad that they have. But you don't. You're going to talk to friends. You're going to read reviews. Do you go to a new restaurant without looking at a review these days? If it doesn't have 3 stars, are you going? Probably not. So it's really, really important to think about that. And that's where a lot of marketing, advertising, whether you're doing digital, you're still doing print or other things, just thinking about how do we really get that word of mouth going and get those really great reviews, and how do you balance when you have negative reviews or negative input or people don't like your product. So they're a little bit different, but they all work together. It's like Mad Men or the PR reps for celebrities. It's not nearly as glamorous. It's a lot of fun, but it's not nearly at that level. It's not that high pressure. But there are some perks. It is sometimes fun to travel on a business trip or get to see a product before somebody else does. So it's always a little interesting. There's also the belief that there's no heart in this type of work, that it's all Snickers and Coca-Cola and selling a product. There's actually a lot of work that goes into working with nonprofits, working with groups that are making a change in the world. I think I've only had to work on actually one product in my whole career. Everything else has been about actually making a difference in the world. So getting communities together, talking about health, educating them about that, teaching them, the best practices around surgical care. If you have surgery and you get a temperature, please go in, you have an infection, letting people know. So a lot of that work can be really positive. Be the match. We were saving lives. Every person who joined that registry had the chance to save a life. So there's a lot of really heartwarming work in this area too. So for people who are really, want to have purpose in their work, there's those great opportunities. But there's also cool opportunities to work on the corporate side. And if you really like products, you can do that. Just some general advice. I always say consider it. You never know where you're going to find a really great place to work or a place to learn. And every place is different. It's going to have its own culture. When you're looking at a place, I always say interview the people. When you're going in and interviewing, interview them, because really what you're looking for is the right fit for you. And I've had friends who've worked at the same agency at me, and we've had the exact opposite experience. I loved it, and they thought it was the worst job of their life. So, it's not for everyone, but for some people it's going to be amazing. You can really build your experience here, and you can do a lot of different things, and oftentimes it opens doors. I have a lot of friends who started agencies, and they went corporate because their clients hired them. Network every chance you get. You never know when a new job or an opportunity is going to come up. A lot of times people think, oh, that was just so-and-so I met somewhere, but you'd be amazed at when that person will come back around and either recommend you or ask for a recommendation or do something else. Write, rewrite, and proof your resume, especially if you're looking at something in the communications, marketing, PR field. We are heavily trained editors, and I say that seriously. We will rip your resume apart. So make sure it's done right. And there are plenty of people who are willing to help do it, whether it's our Career Services Center, friends, or families, but that makes or break. This is a field that's really high into attention to detail. You can't put out a website that has, pages aren't working. You can't have ads where things are misspelled. So they're looking for people who do their homework and put the attention to detail into things like their resumes. If you're not sure what you really want to do or where you want to go, look at other people's career paths. A lot of times getting into these fields isn't just from point A to point B to point C. Sometimes it's jumping around. I work with a lot of people who started out in journalism and who are now working in marketing. People who started out with history degrees and were teachers and who now have come into the field. One of our designers, she is a fine arts major, and she worked in restaurants for about 15 years before she went back and got her design degree. So people come in a lot of different ways, and if you're interested in how somebody got that job, just go on LinkedIn, look at where they've been, where they've worked, the types of work they've done. You can gain a lot of insights that way. And the other thing I always say is pay it forward. If somebody gives you a leg up, make sure you do that to somebody else, because this is a world of networking and connections, and sometimes you never know when somebody's going to help you out, and it's wonderful to be able to do it for someone else. So, there you go. That's it.
All right, what kind of questions do we have for Tocarra? Wait.
Go here.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Well, earlier you said that there is a brand for Clark College.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could articulate what that brand is and how it was arrived at.
I cannot, and it's because we're actually in the process of refining it and putting that together. Because one of the challenges is there's always going to be a brand. If something exists, it has a brand. It's your personality, it's your reputation. But we weren't intentional about what that is, or haven't been in a long time. And so I can tell you what I think it is, but I think if you ask Bruce, he'll give you a different answer, and if you ask somebody else, they'll give you a different answer.
Sure.
So we're actually working on refining that right now. And I actually think it's one of the more fun processes to do. And we've actually been working through it for the past year. So, and that includes looking at what are we currently doing. We've done focus groups with current students. We've done a community survey to see what they think about Clark and just about community colleges in general. We did a couple of focus groups with non-students. We've been talking with the foundation about some of the research they've done and really looking at, not only who do we think we are, but who does everyone outside of us think we are, because your actual brand lives somewhere in the middle. And it's trying to find where that sweet spot is. So we're just about to start to talk about where that sweet spot is. So we're looking to roll that out in the new year. So if you want to ask me again, then I'll tell you. So.
We could sign a non-disclosure agreement.
So you had a question.
I was curious, with marketing for Clark, do you find does Clark pretty much have different niches that they're looking at for, minorities and older people and people doing work? How do you do your marketing? How do you figure out how much money to spend on what much money? Obviously, high school students are the big people.
Yeah.
How do y'all figure that out? Where you're spending money and time?
Yeah.
For the different demographics.
So for video purposes, the question is basically, how do we put our marketing plan together? How do we figure out what our budget is, how we're going to spend our budget, and which audiences to spend that budget on? So our budget is kind of predetermined. The college does its budgeting every year, and then I get a budget, and I take off the salaries of my team, and what's left over is up for me to kind of budget out. And so I look at that and I say, okay, what do we have this next year? What do our enrollments look like? Our number one job is to make sure that our enrollments stay up and that people know about the college and are applying to the college. So we plan against, how do we keep just a core message going and keep Clark in front of people so they know that we're here. And then we just look at kind of what the priorities are. So for this next year, a lot of the work is around transitional studies. We have some really great new programs in our transitional studies with pre-apprentice, English as a second language. They revamped the new High School 21 Plus program, so there's emphasis there. There's always kind of an emphasis on career tech, just because there's a constant demand. Our programs are built to get people into the workforce, so wherever those open jobs are, we want to make sure that we have students coming in so that they can go out and get those jobs. And sometimes there's more push than another, so if we've got something new going, like automotive added their Honda partnership this year, and then they just got their Audi partnership, so we'll spend some of our dollars there. So we kind of plan that way and kind of what we know some of those priorities are. Some of it we save for opportunities that just come up. Sometimes, there might be an opportunity to advertise somewhere or to sponsor an event or do something different that we weren't planning on. But that's mostly how we kind of approach it, and based on the priorities of where the college is at. But we also put forward our recommendations too of, we haven't done much. Up until last year, we hadn't really done much in the Hispanic community or the Latino community, and we had an opportunity with Univision to buy a year-long package to do a series of what they call vignettes with them. So we've been working on those over the past year. We've done 4 to date, and we're planning to do 4 more. So part of that is saying, who haven't we connected with yet, and who do we need to be talking with?
Okay. So, those vignettes are very good. I've seen some of them. They're awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, earlier this year, you guys, Clark College had an ad with a mom returning to school and made it look like the little girl was returning, the little girl was proud of the mom.
Yep.
Did you guys do that in-house, or did you have somebody do that?
We did it in-house.
That was a great ad.
Yeah.
It really was.
Thank you. It was that was something new that we'd done. Traditionally, we would do our TV ads featuring actual students, that we would interview or do other things, and we wanted to see if it would make a difference, to do something different. So we actually hired actors, which I will tell you my team was very nervous about because we'd never not used real students. But we'd had this creative idea of, how do we really show kind of what it's like on your first day, and we wanted to have some fun with it, and so we actually just won an award for it. Yay! So that was really exciting, but it was a big risk. That was something we were really actually nervous about because we weren't sure if the college was going to feel comfortable with us kind of doing that. Because that's the other thing too. We're a state school. We're beholden to the taxpayers, so we're very cautious of if we spend X amount of money on whatever we're doing, is the community and the taxpayers going to feel like we're spending their money effectively and wisely. So we really think a lot about that too, and trying to be really thoughtful about how we support the school, but also being really good stewards of taxpayer dollars. So it's a little different when you're spending, Coca-Cola's money, but. So.
Who else has some feedback or questions for Tocarra?
How do you split up your energy or your dollars between the various media groups? Is there one media that's more productive?
It a little bit depends on what we're talking about. So social and digital usually always gets us the biggest return on investment. It's the most cost effective. So for example, an ad in the Columbian on Friday, color ad, let's say it's 3x5, about the size of a photo, is going to run around $400 to $500 for one day, and it's whoever sees it sees it. For about that same amount of money, I can run a Facebook ad for 2 to 3 weeks and have about 6 times as many people see it. But then they also have the opportunity to share and tag other people in it. So when you think about the number of people you're touching per, digital is by far the most effective. But it depends on what we're doing. Sometimes, if we're doing a big event that we want the community to know about, placing that ad in the Columbian makes a huge difference. So, for example, career days, which we do in the spring, and we always work with the career services team to do a pretty big push about that. We do print ads, digital ads in the Oregonian. We do Facebook ads. We do Facebook events. We put out a press release. We really go all around because we want not only the community to come, we want students to come. We have a lot of employers who come, and we want to showcase them as well so they may feel like it's valuable. So, depending on who we're trying to attract, we go into different places. And just knowing, we know different audiences read different things. So, for example, Univision is really important because we know the Latino community, even though a good portion of them are bilingual and speak English just fine, that's, just where they're at. That's a really important TV station for them. That's where they love to get their entertainment, and that's meeting them where they're at. Making sure that we're on mobile is important because we know a lot of our students, may not necessarily have computers at home, but they have a smartphone. So, also there.
Any other feedback or questions for Tocarra? Tocarra, thank you again.
You're welcome. So if you think of anything else, just let Bruce know, or you can always pop up and see me.